Just going to tell you a few stories now. This one's called Proud to be Cornish. After having dug to a depth of 10 feet last year, American scientists found traces of copper wire dating back 200 years and came to the conclusion that their ancestors already had a telephone network more than 150 years ago. Not to be outdone by the horses, in the weeks that followed, American archaeologists dug to a depth of 20 feet, and shortly after, a story was published in the New York Times. American archaeologists, finding traces of 250-year-old copper wire, have concluded that their ancestors already had advanced high-tech communication network 50 years earlier than the Australians. 1 week later, the council in Cornwall reported the following. After digging as deep as 30 feet in St. Just, Denzel Pemberthy, a self-taught archaeologist, reported that he found absolutely bugger all. Denzel has therefore concluded that 250 years ago, Cornwall had already gone wireless. Now this one starts hammering and oh heck man, I can hardly tell you now for grizzling. See, 'twas 4:08 this morning, see, and I heard this noise below like, well I thought 'twas my ma or one of my grandchildren, though I wasn't expecting no one. And then I heard the strangest sound like a linnet 'twas, all shrill and high. Mr. Tunkin, are you awake dear? It's Nurse Tiddy, I'm here for Nurse Barnacote. She's at a fall, poor soul. Well I come straight up. And then I hear these gate feet stanking up the stairs, heavy like an infantryman. Thought she'd be going for the plancha any time. Well, when the door opened, 'twas like a vision. I starts Amazon, and then without no invitation, she starts bustling. I'll just straighten your covers and draw the curtains, Mr. Tunkin. Fresh air to air the circulation. Am I right, Mr. Tunkin? And she turns and looks over her glasses at me. Oh, I must have looked like a cornered ferret, hair like a furze bush. Oh, it makes me ache now to think of them. And then she reaches into this bag and takes out some books and starts reading. Tunkin, Arthur John Samuel, bed bath twice weekly. You don't mind if I call you Arthur, do you, Mr. Tunkin? Well, I was struck dumb, as you can imagine, and I think she took that as a no, because she carries on with Mr. Tunkin this and Mr. Tunkin that, and where does it hurt, Mr. Tunkin? And tell me if you're uncomfortable, Mr. Tunkin. And as quick as you like, she's on me, pulling back the bedclothes and dragging off my nightshirt. Well, I can't pretend I didn't need a bath, you know me. Never was one for all that, and for a second I did feel a touch of embarrassment. But then she started soaping up, and I forgot all about him. Now she wasn't no ever gardener or nothing, but hell, I aren't starting to get particular at my time of life, so I just lay back and took him. Imagine it, man. 1 minute you're sleeping like a babby, and the next an angel in his apron is smothering her hands all over he. I aren't religious, as you well know, so I know I wasn't in heaven. And I thank God for that, else I'd have missed. Well, she was prodding and pummeling and stroking me from my toes to my nose, and all the while paying me little compliments, all concerned like about my welfare. Arthritis is a terrible cross to bear, Mr. Tunkin, and you must miss Miss Tunkin terribly. Then with a final sluice down and a flanneling behind the ears, she was gone as quick as she came. Well, I lay there a minute contemplating my good fortune and wondering what other delights the day had to offer, when it all of a sudden struck me that all that time, all that care, coddling, sloshing and washing, I had not uttered a single word to that dear woman. Well, I can tell you I was up there out of that bed, quicker than you could say knife, and over to the window. Nurse, nurse, I cried, wait! Here, nurse, I'm calling after her, trying to keep her from cracking up. I just wanted to say thank you. Oh, she did look at taken aback. Oh, that's quite all right, Mr. Tunkin. All part of the service, you know, says she. And then she's off again. Oh, there's just one thing. I'm calling after her. Yes, yes, says she. What is it, Mr. Tunkin? Well, you see, I aren't Mr. Tunkin. He's a miserable old bugger, lives next door. Now, Father was at the table, checking his football pools, all the homes and the ways, and following the rules. Young Herbie came in through the door, all smiling and excited. "Hello, Da." "What," says Da, "what's up with you? You're looking some delighted." "Congratulate me, Da," says Herb, "for I have found a love." "Wow, that is handsome news," says Da. "Who was he thinking of?" His son just pulled his ear and blushed, his voice all soft and gooey. "I've asked for Fanny Jenkins, she to live over Truey." His father's face was stony. "My answer must be no. You see, my son, it cannot be. I cannot allow it so." "Why ever not?" young Herbie cried. "She's a handsome maid," he said. "Oh, tell me, Dad, what's wrong with her?" But father shook his head. "It's difficult to tell 'ee, boy, and me your father like. But it was when I was young and I had this here bike. I used to go out now and then to take a little ride, and once or twice I found myself over Truey side. And that is why I must explain my visits over Truey. She's sort of your relation, see, quite like a sister to 'ee." The boy accepted sadly this awkward fact of life, and soon he met another maid he felt would make his wife. He told his father proudly he fancied Liz Trethewey, and found she must be cast aside, another sister to 'ee. The months went by and Herbie strayed, only to face more ruin, for Sissy Frances Overbreeg was like a sister to 'ee. Well, in despair, young Herbie sat, his head upon the table. He tried to joke a bit with Ma, but he felt he wasn't able. "What's the matter, boy?" his mother said. "You're sickening, I don't wonder. You're tittering like an adder, boy, and your face is black as thunder." "Oh, I can't stand it, Ma," he cried. "My heart has gone on strike, and it's all because of Heather, he and his bloomin' bike. For every maid I look upon, be it Mousel or Trelister, my father been there on his bike, and she's bloomin' near my sister." But Ma was stiff with laughing. She hooted like a good un. "So, that's what 'tis upset you so. Don't you worry, my old puddin', for you can wed the maid over Bragg and the one from over Truey. And don't you worry over Da. He's no relation to 'ee." Sorry about that. I'll do this one. This one's called Shiny Balls. Christmas was coming, so Mother baked the cake. Mixing ingredients up took bloomin' hours to make. The fruit had plumbed up handsome, no dipping in the middle. Now was the time to decorate, which Mother thought a fiddle. She rolled the marzipan around and icing all on top. "Did he get the shiny balls?" says Dad. "No, sold out up the shop. But I got Father Christmas, and a little snowman too. I'll wrap a pretty ribbon round, and that will have to do." But Father was insistent. "We got holly on the walls, but we can't have a Christmas cake without the shiny balls. And we got all the family coming for the whole of Christmas Day. No shiny balls upon the cake. We must get some today." Ma wiped her eyes in her penny. The tears were streaming down. "Oh, you do something, Father. Take the car and try in town." So Dad went up Bill's garage. He had to fill the tank. "Oh," says Bill, "oh, you're looking muggy. Has someone robbed your bank?" "No, it's the wife," says Father. "She's on there in some tear. No shiny balls upon the cake. Can't get none anywhere." "I'll tell you what," says Bill, from the desk where he was sat. "I got these little small ball bearings. Can he substitute with that?" "Oh, it's worth a try," says Father, and he took them in his hand. Ma washed and placed them on the cake. "My God, that's looking grand." The children, they were watching at all that had occurred. "Now, kids, this is our secret. Don't say a bloomin' word." On Christmas Day, the family came. They all arrived by noon. Mother had prepared a goose. They'd all be eaten soon. And later, all were snoring while Mother laid out tea, mince pies, a saffron cake and splits, the cake for all to see. They listened on the radio, the speech made by the Queen. "Oh, she'd done a proper job," they said. It was a happy scene. No mishap came at tea time. The trifle disappeared, and several slices of the cake the moment Father feared. They sat there in their paper hats, the firelight on the walls, and Father thinking of the fuss about the shiny balls. For he was grinning quietly while many yarns were swapped, how they'd survived disaster, for they were nearly caught. And Ma was chatting quite relaxed and sitting quite unwary till Grandma bent to poke the fire and shot the poor canary. Oh, 'tis Anton now, said Richard Henry, who just come in from school. Can't go out night. Tell us a yarn, feather. Know any good ones, do he? Oh, did I tell he? Ever tell he the one about Willie Waistcoat? 'Tis true, and if he didn't, he ought be. How do we call that, feather? Asked Richard. Well, 'cause he said he'd wear his waistcoat in bed to keep his feet warm. Well, Willie to use one of their cutthroat razors and was shaving when the cat jumped up on the table and scat over the jug of milk. This frightened him, and turning round quickly, still holding the razor in his hand, cut off the tip of his nose. When he seen what he'd done, he left the razor fall out of his hand, and having no boots on, it fell on his foot and cut off a piece of his big toe. By this time he was hollering for help. I've killed myself, I know what I have. And in the excitement, he stuck the piece of his toe on his nose and the tip of his nose on his toe. Now, strange to say, they both stuck. And to look at, you wouldn't know now it ever happened. But there was only one snag. Well, what's that? Asked Richard Henry. Well, every time he'd want to wipe his nose, he got to take his boots off. Now, Sammy had a donkey. He wasn't very bright. If you turn leftwards, he would veer off to the right. Sometimes he would gallop, and sometimes he would crawl, and he'd sometimes dig his heels in, and he wouldn't go at all. His eyes was different colours, and he only had one ear. He was knock-kneed in his front legs, and he bandy in the rear. His teeth was broken and busted from chewing on the slat, and his tail was short and stumpy, where he pinched in the gate. One day I says to Sammy, how is it, my old dear, that you brought that bloomin' donkey and you kept him all these years? I tell you how it is, he said, and pointed to his wife. We'd have reckoned that their animal have saved our married life. 'Cause I'm nothing much to look at when all is said and done. My face was slapped together when the Lord was having fun. And my beloved missus, she went never tell a lie, so I wouldn't pay her compliments for fear of her reply. But since I got that donkey, 'tis like Christmas every day. I'd a tell her how she's pretty, and she'd a look at me and say, dear Sam, I'll give you kisses, and I'll sit up on your lap, 'cause compared to that there donkey, you're a handsome looking chap. This is just one day out Trancrom. Oh, hello. There, that you, Teresa, my handsomes. Yes, I'm fit again now, due for another day's post. Seemed like I was only here yesterday, didn't I, talking to he? Well, Father and me decided to take the twins. That's Decky, the one with the third eye, and Silas, the one was took out the oven before he was baked. Kedge of bones he was. Sometimes he looked like a dying winard. Anyhow, going up Trancrom for afternoon feast. Picked the right day, I believe, as the sun was shining, but the wind was blowing quite a bit like of a holy. Of course, Father says when we to get to the top of Trancrom, we should get on the lee side of the rock for a bit shelter. Now, Mother, says Father, give the fire a poke, will he, and pull the kettle forth to boil up the jug of tea this afternoon. Talking about adders up Trancrom, Mother was as teasy as adder, 'cause she got to get blister side of her toe. Silas, he was going with a little man from Brepper. Well, she'd have lived right next door to Brepper Harbour. When the tide comes in, she'd have sits down for breakfast with her welly boots on. Thin little maid, some wish looking as well as she was. Legs on her like linnet's toe, poor soul. Dora, I believe she was called, and Silas wanted Dora to come with us up to the top of Trancrom to watch the sun setting. Mother was busy making saffron cakes and heavy cakes and pasties, and a get jug full of tea for the afternoon trip. Decky was going up a long dog up to Trancrom, Mother and Father dragging all the chairs and food. Of course, Silas and Dora were always three scats behind. Mother then hollering for Father. She got her leg caught in some brambles. Father out freer was not long though, for her leg was all blotted up like a quilkin. Still, we made to the top of Trancrom. Mother started opening the basket, then she called to Silas and Dora, if I go to tell 'ee twice once more, come as here and sit down side of Father. Tell us a yarn, Father Willie, asked Dickie. Well, boy, looking back over the future, did I tell ye about Uncle Compo? Well, he didn't marry till late in life, says Father. Why did he wait so long? Asked Silas. Well, says Father, he met a nice little maid who was nearsighted and hard of hearing, and Compo thought he was out all day working, she would be good company for the dog. Mother started out handing out the pastas. Dickie asked Father, Mother says we should always eat a balanced diet. What's that there? Well, she means a pasty in each hand, says Father. And all of a sudden a stranger appeared from nowhere. Father gnawed he was a stranger by the way he walked. Father says to him, what's on, pard? Well, says the stranger, I'm trying to find Cadreevy Lighthouse. But the smell of those lovely pasties brought me this way. Oh, sit down, says Father. Have a pasty. So the stranger started to eat away. Hey, hang on a minute, says Father. You always eat a pasty with a crimp on the right. So the stranger turned the pasty around the proper way for eating. Of course, all the gravy come out of the bottom of them. Then the taters and beef all over. And gosh, he was in some caudle, he was. I tell ye, soon the stranger decided to be on his way. How far is it to Cadreevy from here, the stranger asked. Oh, about a mile and a half as the crow flies. But further if you're walking, says he. See again, said Father. Now, Mother, let's have a bit saffron cake and a get cup of tea. God, handsome 'twas. I tell ye, of course, said Father. There's Uncle Herbert. Another one married late. Had a good job courting some long time. Then he'd ask his girlfriend to marry him. Well, she replied, how much do you earn? Well, about £1.50 a week, Herbert says to her. Well, that wouldn't keep me in handkerchiefs, replied the girlfriend. Well, what's the matter with thee, says Herbert. Got a cold of thee. Soon dark clouds were gathering in the rain, floods of them, wet leaking to the skin that we was. So home to go as fast as we can. The place was like a Troy town. I tell ye, my gar, oh, is that the time? 'Tis time for me to stoking up the slab for a supper. See again. That's that little story there. Mother and Father were in the kitchen, sitting in the kitchen table. They were waiting for boy Richard Henry to come down from bed. I do believe that boy isn't well. I heard him moving about in the night. Besides, he'd been cold twice. Tin like it told, says Father. You know what happened yesterday when I took up chapel, says Mother. We only got to the first hymn when he said he was feeling sick. I told him to run out long, and if he's feeling better, come in again. And if he was worse, go on home. Well, we didn't finish the hymn before he was beside me again. Hell, I said, you made this? Yes, said he. I found a box in the chapel porch marked for the sick. I aren't feeling too good myself, said Mother. I walked too far, I did, last night. I went up Trancrom and wasn't I thirsty. I stopped and asked a woman want to keep a little small on them for a cup of drink. Oh, will you have a drop of milk? She asked. Yes, said I. Thank you very much. So she brought out some milk in a small bowl. I thought 'twas some funny drink from a small bowl, but I was shagging. After a while, a little pig come up and started rubbing up against my legs. Dear little thing he was. I said, do you think that little pig to know me? I've been up here heaps of times. Don't know about that, replied the woman, but he do know that's his bowl. Right. These are a couple of short ones here. An expectant father rang the Turlish maternity unit to see how his wife, who had gone into labour, was getting on. By mistake, he was connected to the county cricket ground. How's it going, he asked. Oh, fine, came the answer. We got 3 out and hope to have the rest out before lunch. The last one was a duck. A farmer near St. Just saw a stranger drinking from his stream. He shouts, what's on? You don't want to be drinking that. It's full of horse pee and cow doings. Oh, hi there, says the stranger. I'm your new neighbour from London. I just bought a cute little cottage in the village. I'm not used to the way you chaps speak. So could you say that again? A bit slower, please. The farmer replies, if you use 2 hands, you won't spill any. I'll do this one here. It's getting colder, Jan remarked. I can feel it in my bones. My feet are always the first to tell her, like the piper stones. Poor Ada gets the worst of it, because when we goes to bed, she'd mutter about the concrete blocks I'd to push against her leg. I've tried all sorts down through the years, from things that I've been told. You get these here fancy thermals, but they're dearer, boy, than gold. Then Willie John said, do like me when the chill of winter bites. The best thing of the lot, my son, is a pair of woman's tights. So I went and asked my Ada, of course. She had to make me squirm. Well, Jan Travaska, she replied, I believe you're on the turn. You better take your fancy from the airing cupboard shelf, but if you want them black and sexy, you can buy them for yourself. Next morning, pulling turnips, and the wind was like a knife, but my legs and feet was cosy, thanks to my beloved wife. Oh, you're chirpy, Jan, said Henry. How's your darling Ada May? Oh, she's fine, I said, and feeling extra close to me today. Perhaps Henry's horse was listening. He decided to be cute and bolted with the turnip cart and me in hot pursuit. Well, as he done a rest and turn, I heard the tailgate crack and 50,000 turnips come flying out the back. Oh, my foot, oh, my leg. I was in some sorry state. The boys run round and ate me up, but I couldn't take my weight. Each time I tried to stand up straight, the pain was getting worse. So we hobbled off down along the road to see the district nurse. The next thing I remember, I was on this big settee. Nurse Florence Panalula was there fiddling with my knee. I better take a look, she said, while grinning through her teeth. And I suddenly recalled what I was wearing underneath. As I lashed around and struggled, she said, come on, don't be shy. And she whipped away my trousers in the blinking of an eye. Then silence while I waited for a giggle or a scream. But Florence Panalula wasn't nowhere to be seen. Then her voice off in the corner said, I'm writing up my notes in case of complications and the need for antidotes. Though I feel this diagnosis should be written up in lights. Minor bruising round your ankles and a ladder in your tights. When one cousin Jack meets another cousin Jack, going someplace or coming back, early in the morning or late at night, the greeting's a question and the question's, all right, and you know, the expected response is just the same. Oh, they might say my handsome or use a name, but all right's the answer. 'Tis always been so, down here in Cornwall, where'er you go. All right, fills the air. Oh, you could be suicidal, full of black despair, unable to see a glimmer of light. But being Cornish, hell, you're right. For instance, see a cousin Jack who's had a few, bless his heart, is all he can do is get back home and back home late to be met by his missus with a look of hate. But he doesn't get flummoxed or filled with fright. No, before he falls down, he mutters, all right. Why, listen, I once awoke in intensive care, and scared I gazed at the others there, when a face I knew came into sight, and right away we were both, all right. Oh, I'm willing to bet, no, this ain't no jest, when a cousin Jack is laid to rest, before he's lowered out of sight, if you tapped on his box, you'd hear, all right. So to me it just goes to show whate'er the plight the world is in, whatever might happen in the future, ours is bright, 'cause we're Cornish, my handsomes, and we're all right. This is only another short one. This one's called The Cabbage. Mrs. Stone prepared the meal. Oh, I haven't got no beans. And dinner isn't nothing if you haven't got no greens. She called to William Henry. Go in the garden, Willie. I need a cabbage, dear, she said. Ain't got enough to filly. With knife in hand, Bill Henry sped out through the kitchen door, and from that moment Mrs. Stone seen her man alive no more. 5 minutes passed, she fussed about, why, where's he gone to now? He just had to cut a cabbage. Don't take this long, I vow. 5 minutes more, and she was off, and there, look what she found. Her man beside the cabbages lay dead upon the ground. Up chapel at the funeral, they tended to her needs and never paused to speak to her there in her widow's weeds. Poor Mrs. Stone, what did he do in such awful times as these? Well, what could I do? She wiped her eyes. I opened a tin of peas. Right. Keep your clothes on, Ada. This is another one. Keep your clothes on, Ada. This is about WI. Anybody from the WI here? Afraid putting their hand up now, aren't they? Keep your clothes on, Ada. Here, boy, said Jan. Did he reboot the woman up the line, stripping down to nothing for a calendar design? I had to lay the law down and done and by. I said, you keep your clothes on, Ada, down the local WI. Oh, don't be daft, says Ada. They aren't getting me undressed. Why, even bathroom mirrors don't catch me without my vest. Oh, that's true, says I. You was never one that ventured off the path. You're the only woman I don't know what dressed to take a bath. But I'm afraid you might be tempted down at one of their affairs. I wouldn't trust that Mildred Potts for all her fancy airs. I seen her husband swimming once down off the Golden Mile, and all that he was wearing was a trilby and a smile. You keep your clothes on, Ada, as a decent woman do, and if they're looking for a dolly bird, make sure it isn't you. And when you sing Jerusalem, don't close your eyes no more, or you'll be in the Daily Star on pages 3 and 4. See, there's some that's high and mighty and some dainty as you wish, but when they get together, 'tis a different plate of fish. Your mother had it right, dear maid. Remember what she said. You keep your clothes on, Ada, and don't ever nod your head. You stick to making chutney, dear, and when you handing in, you button up your overcoat right underneath your chin. And if they're taking photographs and wanting you to pose, you be a lady all refined and punch them on the nose. Imagine down the paper shop, the stick there'd be for me if you was on the calendar for all the world to see. They'd be standing there google-eyed like pixies down the dowel. You looking peaky, Jan, they'd say, but Ada's looking well. So keep your clothes on, Ada. Your spring chicken days are gone. The sands of times have shifted and continue moving on. Every picture tells a story, so the saying goes of old, but to such a thing as stories that are better never told. Right. Well, let's do this one. Oh. Richard Henry come running in and said, oh, doctor, been up school day and we have had no lessons. Well, what did it say? Asked mother. Well, he looked down my throat and said I had flat feet. The doctor was looking at some people's heads, said father. I was coming down along just now and Henry Bates was outside his front door. Some mad he was, so I up and asked him what was the matter. 'Tis like his ear. You don't know my missus is up in bed bad. Wow. She told me when I go out to lock the door and shove the key through the letterbox. Well, I closed the door and put the key in through, but I forgot to lock the door. What do I do now? I don't know. Anyhow, he could climb in through the window, said Richard Henry. Just then the boy from next door come running up the garden path and kicked to the front door. They haven't got no knocker. When father opened the door, the boy said, please, will somebody come in at once? Our baby been and swallowed my black lead pencil. Oh, don't matter, replied father. Here's another one, I got two. I'm going out front gate, says father. Tap the window when tea's ready, mother, won't he? Father was looking for a piece of wood to sit down when he noticed two men come up long, and when they got up to the gate he could see they was looking some tired and could hardly drag long. How far 'tis it to the railway station, they asked. Oh, about 2 miles. I can't walk no further, said one. Come us on, said the other. We're two of us, that isn't more than 1 mile each. And on they went. Father stayed chatting to one to another till he got quite late, and he forgot about tea time till somebody said they had scrawler for tea. I am having mine yet, thought father. Gone in and see what's doing. Mother was sitting down knitting. Come on, shouted father. I'm checking. Oh, 'tisn't more than 5 o'clock, said mother, looking up at the clock. 5, 'tis more like 7 o'clock. Oh, that clock must have stopped. So out he go again and asked someone the time. It was nearly half an hour before a man come up from down the road, and father asked him in the time. The man stopped, took out his watch and said, oh dear, I didn't know it was that late. Put his watch back in his jacket and walked on. And father had to put the clock back when the pub closed. Mrs. James come in after tea, wanted someone for her stall, so she started praising up father and asking what the weather was going to be like. Looks like rain, said he. I always said you were a good prophet, says Mrs. James, but mother would have it he's more of a dead loss. I saw old Uncle Annie, said father. He's 80 today. Said he was out of work and did I know where he could get a job. Farmer had told him it was time for him to finish work and take it easy. Of course he would look after him and give him a pension. Pension, said Uncle Annie. I don't want no pension. I want work. Mazed he was. Told farmer he'd been working for him for over 60 years. And if he thought that job wasn't permanent, he wouldn't have taken on in the first place. Oh, I haven't seen Mrs. James next door for a brave while. Sick is she? Asked father. No, replied mother. Washing she was yesterday. I had a mind to build a garden wall hour, but if I did, she'd get a ladder look over. Can't keep she out. Our old man is dead and buried up. So that's the end of he. Yes, says mother, and 'twill be the end of we too, if we'd have lived long enough. Old Sire Trenier had a lucky escape from she. Been courting her for 15 years, 'cause she wouldn't be married in church, and he hated chapel. Now he got a housekeeper to keep him warm. I shall never forget when she did marry Dick James, he used to hack up her garden and put in few tedders before they got itched. He told me all about him down the tool house. Her mother, what used to live with her, was pretty sick in bed, and Dick was invited to go up and see her. Oh, you're looking awful, said Dick. But cheer up, you'll soon be in a better place. I don't want to go, she replied. Camborne is good enough for me. What about it? Continued Dick. Who's going to look after he when mother's gone? I don't know, replied Lizzie, peeping out from behind the handkerchief she was holding up to her face. Upon that, Dick said, I caught hold of her, and she said, yes, I believe I will. Next day, he went down to see the parson to put up the banns. Well, said the parson, I suppose you know what you're doing. Yes, replied Dick, but I won't get married before she knows what she's doing. Nice little house and all. When the great day arrived, Dick was in next door an hour before it was time to go church. Helping her get ready. They went down back lane and was back again from church, man and wife, and none of the neighbours knew anything about it. Well, said Dick, so long. I'll see you again, Mara, same time. He didn't come down here to live for 2 weeks because he said the rent in his house was paid up till then. He'd been married before and had saved up for her upper wedding ring. He told her himself he found out 'twould fit Lizzie afore he asked to marry her. Very careful man he was. One thing I can't bide is people with two faces for 2 pence, said mother. I tell ye to keep out of this house. But if she got 2 faces, asked Richard, how don't she put the other one on? Shut up. Somebody's knocking at the door. I'll answer it. 'Tis a milkman, I expect. Mother goes to the door, and there stood Mrs. James. Come in, Mrs. James. I'm so glad to see. We was then going out. Oh, don't let me keep you in, replied Mrs. James. I only wanted to know if you could tell me who got the little house that was to let at the top of Sandy Lane. I see the notice is gone. I know somebody who wants a house. Oh, 'tisn't a house I should want, said mother. I don't like all that their modern inconveniences, and besides, the front door is round the back. I heard somebody hammering there last night. I passed up long, going bow. I looked in through the window. There was a man trying to drive a nail in the wall, and the head up against the wall and striking to the point with his hammer. Turning round, he saw me and shouted, I've tried and tried, but I can't drive him in. No wonder, says I. I've got no sense, that nail is for the opposite wall. Oh, so it is, said he. And he started to drive the nail in. After a few blows, out rushed the man next door and shouted, stop, stop, don't drive him no further. It will do exactly for me to hang my hat on. Of course, is what they call a lath and plaster wall. Well, we're going magic lantern, said mother, and I hope you haven't left the fire out. Good night, and mind the step. That's that one. Snow and ice down here, down Newland. Well, we survived the siege. Yes, the snow, I mean. We thought we hadn't bad down here in Newland, but it was nothing what they poor souls had up country. And I mean they that live up Camborne and beyond. We had snow, sure enough, but what kept we isolated was a freezing cold wind. Easterly it was, that froze up all the pavements. The roads was clear enough, buses running throughout. But what was the use of that if they were risking life and limb to get to the bus stops? Still, Alfred and me took what they call a window of opportunity and managed to get across the road and stocked up with enough meat and vegetables and that sort of thing so that we could sit it out. Pretty cold it was though, wasn't it? I'd done a bit of washing one day, hanging out under the linny to dry, and it froze like soldiers right away. Alfred went out to get a couple of logs for the fire and got scat round the earhole with a leg of one of his own long underpants. Boy Michael come in with a bag of logs for us because he was afraid we were going to suffer with this here hypothermia. Oh, goes on with it, I said to him. We'll real snug, especially at night. We'd go to bed with the duvet on, free blankets and 2 hot water bottles. I made plenty of licky broth and stew as well. Mine. There was one day when there'd been enough sun to melt some of the ice, so we took another opportunity to go for a bit of walk. Well, I was beginning to feel like a kipper with Alfred sitting there by the fire all day smoking his dirty get pipe. I decided that we needed fresh air in our lungs, so we went over along towards the prom. We thought we had a bit more shelter from the easterly wind if we went along the lanes. We were doing very well until we got to a get patch of ice, and then we were debating whether to turn back or no. Then I heard this little family coming along. I heard the mother saying to the children, "We must always help poor old souls like these 2 old people ahead of us." So when they come up and asked us if they could see us over the ice, I felt as old as Methuselah. We were glad a bit out, and we thanked them very much. But when they was out of earsight, I garmed, "Poor old souls, I ain't going to be called that no more. We're going to make a revolution to get ourselves fit." "Don't you mean a resolution, Sarah Ann?" asked Alfred. "No," I said, "because it would take a revolution to get you off your backside to exercise. No more sleeping by the fireside with the Western Morning News in the afternoons for you, my son. We're going to take a walk every day." He grumbled. "I wonder you don't suggest that we go to that gym place over there over the harbour." "Don't be so daft, Alfred," I said. "You got too big a belly and I got too big a behind to go trying to get in any of the other tight-fitting leggings things they'd wear. Both of us decide too much to go exposing ourselves. No, we'll take a walk as I decided. You can cut down on your baccy and I'll cut down on the nicey. We might be elderly, but we're going to be fit." Alfred didn't look very happy, and I heard him muttering something like dictator. Like I said, we survived the snow, but we can't go for no walk day because he's entering down with rain and blowing a hoolie. So Alfred is under the Western Morning News sleeping. Seems like we're all back to normal again now. This one's called The Quilt. Oh. Oh, it was a wild and stormy night upon the Cornish moor, and at that lovely, lonely wayside house a knock came to the door. Says mother on her way to bed, "Whoever can that be? Now pull your coat down to your neck, you better go and see." A strange young man was huddled there. "I'm afraid I've lost my way. It's really getting rather late. Have you somewhere I can stay?" "This house is small. We have no room." Poor father shook his head. "Our daughter is in the other one. We don't have another bed." "He can sleep upon the parlour floor," called mother down the stair, alongside the harmonium, with a cushion off the chair. "How wonderful," the young man said, and a sob caught in his throat. "To get away from all that storm, I can wrap up in my coat." Installed upon the parlour rug, a cushion neath his head, says that is all that we can do. "God bless," the young man said. The hours ticked by and still the gale blew on into the night. But upstairs mother tossed and turned. She didn't think it right. That young man must be shrim with cold upon the parlour floor. We haven't had a fire in there for at least a month or more. And isn't there a blanket? We haven't got a spare. Not even one in Ida's room. It's no use looking there. "Go down and see him, Da," she said. "My dear, I'm worried sick." And father pulled on his boots once more. "I'll be down there in a tick." Ma turned to Da, such pleading eyes. In fact, his heart did melt. "I'll tell you what, my flower," he said. "I'll offer him our quilt. A proper job, my cock, says Ma. Put a coat across our bed. Dad gathered up the eider down and for the stairs did head. Are you down there still, my son? Dad down the stairs did call. And do we want our eider down to warm me up at all? The young man stood, his body limp, exhausted and unsteady. No, I don't want your eider down. She's been down 4 times already. This one's called Drastic Measures. Sorry boy, I'm sick, said Jan, my bloomin' head is thumping. I suppose a man as old as me shouldn't go for bungee jumping. But I started out by accident in Newlyn of all places. Coming home from pub, I missed the bridge and hung there on my braces. Well, as I dangled up and down, I was feeling quite elated. 'Tis like as though your aches and pains are all elasticated. So the next weekend I tried again with a crane from Harry Deebles. But I bounced too high, went round the jib like wool round knitting needles. Of course, the boys all laughed till they were sore, so I said I'd bet a tenner, but a bit of practice through the week, I can do the cliffs up centre. Now, as you know, with all these things, 'tis down to preparation. So I took command of the setting up with the utmost calculation. And on the day, the crowd was hushed. Then whoosh, and I was dropping on down, and all was well until it came to stopping. I tell you, boy, I hit the sand like a human armadillo and tunneled 30 feet or more till bedrock formed a pillow. It was while my bones was being set with my arms and legs in plaster that I had the time to ruminate on the cause of my disaster. And then one day I worked it out. It was Europe's interference. Their weights and measures men it was who dented my appearance, 'cause I never have quite come to terms with these kilograms and litres. See, I measured up the cliff in yards, but they sold the rope in meters. Oh, I like this one as well. I do this for, I lost a dear friend from Hayle Old Cornwall and she used to love this little story, so I'm going to do this one in the pipeline. This one's called, there's talk of building pipelines to take our waste away, so Penwith odds and ends can float beyond Cadrevy Bay. This principle has logic, but because our plans are small, I've conjured up this brand new scheme to satisfy us all. We should make the pipeline bigger and allow it to extend around the coast to John O'Groats, then back to Land's End. There'd be multifold connections like the railway line at Crewe to carry from each house and home its daily residue. Around and round in circles, our effluent shall flow, its sludge encased in concrete walls with nowhere else to go. But so, should demand be heavy at Bude or Gurnard's Head, they'll press the switch and send her on to Aberdeen instead. But wait, I hear you mutter, hang on before you start. What happens when the pipe gets full? Ah, there's the clever part. For secretly near Dover, I had it a giant funnel, and every day from over here, a lookout man will shout all clear, and the whole darn lot will disappear down through the Channel Tunnel. Oh, it's hard to imagine you, Jan, I observed as a baby those long years ago. Such a foolish remark, it ignited a spark on which he was anxious to blow. Oh, we never had nothing. I started him off, and now he was up and away. I never had toys like the best of the boys. Not even a game I could play. Oh, I had this old tin with a pebble inside, and he'd rattle away with a shake. I'd sit in my pram with his tin in my hand, and I'd see how much noise I could make. Isn't he handsome, my mother would say, but father would turn up his nose. Stop your row, he would shout as I wriggled about. Not a lover of kids, I suppose. But when you're a babby, you don't understand. I thought he was playing a game. Soon as father come in, I would rattle my tin and hammer him down on the frame. Oh, he's some pleased to see you, poor mother would try to pass it all off for the best. In a way, she was right. I rejoiced in the sight of theirs standing up on his chest. One day I recalled as I gurgled and shook and created one heck of a din. With one final bang and a crash and a clang, the lid came adrift from the tin. All that was left in the pram was the stone, so I throttled as hard as I could. He bounced off a plate and pitched in the grate behind all the ashes and wood. Mother come running and picked up the tin, then rummaged around on the floor, then checked in the pram amidst the biscuits and jam, and galloped her way to the door. Next minute there's father arriving at speed and unsympathetic in tone. "What's the trouble?" he growled. "Oh, William," she held, "the boy been and swallowed the stone." "Oh, there's nothing so daft as you woman," he said. "You're softer than yesterday's lard. What's the matter with you? Use your brains, woman, do. There's plenty more stones in the yard." Done that one. I'm just looking for someone. Sick visitors is all right. We'll have a bit of sick visitors. Am I for a minute? Am I? Yes? Yeah. This one just bit. I had the flu and I lay sick in my bed. I was aching all over from my toe to my head. Then my friends came to see how I was doing. And when they all went, I felt like a ruin. The first to come was Mary Jane. "Hello," she said, "here I got such a pain going down through my cheeks, and you'd never believe it. I can't find nothing at all that seems to relieve it. Still I must suffer in silence and not make a fuss. Oh look, there's Emily, just come off the bus." Said Emily, "I must say, oh, you're looking all right. As for me, I tell you, I was up half the night, feeling all wished with a pain in my belly. On my legs, they seemed to be made of jelly." Then in come Agnes with a woeful expression. "Oh, I'm feeling mortal. I got this here depression that comes when I've had a lot of housework to do. You ought to be thankful you only got flu." Says Edith, "I'm under the doctors because I can't breathe. When I run for the bus, all my bosoms do heave." He says to lose weight, but you know that's absurd. He'd know I'd pick at my food like a bird. "Is that a box of chocolates in there in your reach? Pass me the coffee cream, and then I'll try peach. And perhaps I'll have a biscuit or two. Oh, I nearly forgot. What's the matter with you?" And so they sat happily all around my bed, comparing their complaints, till someone said, "My soul, look at the time. Come, girls, we must fly. We've got a hectic night at the WI. We're having a disco with all sorts of dancing, so we need all our strength from the jigging and prancing." So each of them rose to depart like a shot, their various illnesses quite forgot. To each I did say, "You've cheered me no end. I'm sure tomorrow I'll be on the mend. Thank you for coming." I called weak from my bed, then thankfully turned over and covered my head. "Now if you're ever sick and I come to see you, I promise I won't talk of when I had the flu." Oh, to the wash machine. We'll talk a bit about Hayle here now. It was a quiet night in Hayle, and a man and his wife were fast asleep when there was an unexpected knock on the door. And the man looked at the alarm clock. It was 3:30 in the morning. "I'm not getting out of bed at this time," he thought. There was another knock louder. "Aren't you going to answer that?" asked his wife. Oh, so the man dragged himself out of bed and went downstairs, opened the door to find a strange man standing outside. It didn't take long for the homeowner to realise the man was totally drunk. "All right, my handsome," slurred the stranger, "can you give me a push?" "No, I can't. It's 3:30 in the morning. I was in bed," said the homeowner as he slammed the front door. He went back to bed and told his wife what happened. "Oh, that wasn't very nice of you," she said. "Remember that night we broke down in the pouring rain on the way to pick up the children from the babysitter? You had to knock on that man's door to get us starting again. What would have happened if he told us to get lost?" "Yeah, but that man who just knocked on our door was as drunk as a Peran," replied the husband. "Well, can we at least help him move his car somewhere safe and sort him out a taxi?" says his wife. So the husband got out of bed again, got dressed, went downstairs, opened the door, but he couldn't see the stranger anywhere. So he shouted, "Hey, do we still want to push?" He heard a voice call out, "Yes, please." So still unable to see the stranger, he shouted, "Where are you?" "Oh, I'm over here, my handsomes," the stranger replied. "On your swing." We're up Camborne now. 3 sisters, 192, 194 and 196, live in a house together in Camborne. One night, the 96-year-old draws a bath. She puts her foot in and pauses. She yells out to the other sisters, "Were I getting in or out of the bath, me lover?" The 94 hollers back, "I don't know. I'll come up and see." She starts up the stairs, but then she pauses. Were I going up the stairs or down, my lover? The 92-year-old was sitting at the kitchen table having tea, listening to her sisters. She shakes her head and says, I hope I never get that forgetful, as she raps on the oak table loudly. Then she shouts upstairs, I'll come up and out the pair of ye as soon as I see who's at the door. A man from Bew decided to become a monk. So he went to the monastery and talked to the head monk. The head monk said, you must take a vow of silence, and you can only say 2 words every 3 years. The man agreed, and after the first 3 years, the head monk came to him and said, what are your 2 words? Food cold, the man replied. 3 more years went by, and the head monk came to him again and said, and what are your 2 words? Robe dirty, the man replied. 3 more years went by, and the head monk came to him and said, and what are your 2 words? I quit, said the man. Well, the head monk replied, I'm not surprised. You've done nothing but complain ever since you got here. We had some confloption here ever since I seen you last. I put the washing machine on and let him go. When I went out the kitchen a bit later on, he was swimming in water. What on earth now is that near? I says I. Jack, come as here a minute and have a look at this bit. Jack come hobbling out, newspaper still in his hand. What's all this water? He said. This is a bare caution, isn't it? I'll ring for the man. A calm and unflappable Cornishman is my Jack. Can't say the same for me. I was in some tear and thought we was never going to stop mopping up all that there water. You know what it's like, don't he? If you'd upset a cup of tea, it'd seem as though you've upset a churnful, doesn't it? Anyhow, we done it in the end, and then we had gone in the laundrette with all the old towels and stuff we used, because if we streamed them through home, I wouldn't have been able to spin them, see? And there's no drought in the weather yet, is there? And hungry they was too, grafted. We've been having some trouble with the old machine for a bit of while. Mind you, we've had him for donkey's years, and tell you the truth, we thought he'd gone round land for now, really. Anyhow, next day when the man come and had a bit of look at him, and before he tutted or opened his mouth, I know exactly what he was going to say. Don't bother, I said, how much is it going to cost? It's been one thing after another lately, piped up Jack. Perhaps we ought to think of having another one. Now, Jack don't say things like that lightly, and when he do, you better stand back. My gracious, for I know where I was. There he was in ETS, surrounded by wash machines. The little chap, I forget his name, Mr. Lawrence is a call. Anyway, he come forth and started talking about all the different models. Seems as though some to spin faster than others, some you can set to wash with less water, and some are supposed to wash just as clean at lower temperatures. Believe it, do you? And some to work by computer, but I don't want one of they. I should know where I's to. I'm quite at home with an on-off switch, thank you very much, but give me anything too complicated and I wouldn't know where to start. He sound easy when they're telling you in the shop, but he's another thing when you get home, isn't it? Anyhow, we ummed and ahed, and eventually we chose one that will do all we need. He was available in all colours as long as we had a white one. You know, I had to cast my mind back to my mother. She used to get up early every Monday morning to do the washing. She put up her trouser and light the furnace for the hot water. Father would have laid in the sticks, pepper and coal overnight to save her a bit of time. Then she'd get out the big washing tubs. Mind them, Dewey. One for whites and one for colours. Sometimes extra one for really beastly things like Father's trousers if he'd been scudding dung or anything like that. In no time she built her armpits and subs and bubbles. Mind those scrubbing boards, Dewey. How mother's knuckles lasted, I shall never know. Then come the blue and bag and the starts for Father's collars ready to go to chapel next Sunday. When I think upon it now, all we got to do is put the washing in the sheen and go and make the beds while he's doing. We don't know we're living now, do us? Oh. I don't often say on about that because one or two know some of my family, but make you gasp a bit now, but I'm one of 13. 10 boys and 3 girls in my family. I had a fantastic, the gentleman up in the back knows my dad very well, or knew my dad very well. But We lived over Gwithian we talk about our times now, but we lived in a chalet, 2-bedroom chalet. Mother had 6 of us, because I'm a twin. We're not identical, me and my twin, she's my sister. But she had 6 of us under 5 in a 2-bedroom chalet. But they were good times. Mother used to do all this, what we can remember with the boards and the bins and everything else, so I can relate to that. So I just think, well, we haven't got it so bad now, don't matter where we are, but we've got to support everything in the community. I do agree. But anyhow, that's my, anyhow, should I do another one? This one's insurance. Is that all right? Or do you want another story? This one's let's have a look. Done that. I'll do that one in a minute. I like this one, I think. I'll do this one in a minute. There's Dermot, Henry's right-hand man. Jan pointed down the lane. He's a nicer boy, but truth to tell, he's got more brawn than brain. He's what you might call gullible to the daftest see that sod, because all he do is scratch his head and say, well, I'll be blod. We was up there on the farm one day and Dermot's throat was bad. He had this awful hacking cough that was driving Henry mad. He said, Dermot, you're as cheering as an undertaker's clerk. I've tried all sorts, old Dermot said, but nothing seems to work. 'Tis my bronchioles, the doctor said. My chest is like a drum. And I thought I could have told you that. That's the reason why I come. Said Henry, we had much the same with the Guernsey cow of mine, and the thing the vet prescribed was a stuff called Lightning 99. I believe I got half a jug in a bottle in the barn. If he's good enough for the livestock boy, he won't do you no harm. Well, I'll be blawed, said Dermot. Do you think he'll do the trick? I expect they call him Lightning because he's powerful and quick. So Dermot got the bottle, chucked the cork upon the hay, and the smell was down a buffalo from 20 yards away. But he never seemed to notice as he raised his arm to his lip, while ignoring Henry's warning that he only take a sip. Instead, he took a guzzle. You could hear him gurgling down. For a minute, nothing happened. Then his smile became a frown. Then his eyes began to water, and his legs began to shake, and his cheeks was like 2 rainbows with a storm about to break. Well, I'll be blowed, he whispered, and dashed headlong for the door, running 3 times round the hayrick till he couldn't run no more. And he's done a little pirouette as dainty as you wish, and dived straight in the horse trough like a gannet after fish. He'll be all right, said Henry, once we drag out the trough. I think we've cured his bronchioles. I never heard him cough. That Lightning 99 is good, but he slipped me mind somehow. Now I come to think about it, the same thing happened with the cow. Got a new man down the vicarage. Jan sipped upon his tea. I went to check out, he said, to see what I could see. I rang the bell and heard his feet come skipping across the floor. Then this vision in a flowery shirt was peeping round the door. I tried hard not to look surprised, but my eyes was thrilled athirst by the jingle of his earrings and the colour in his shirt. And when I saw his trousers, I didn't know what to think, because I seen him bright and loud and large, but these were shocking pink. Hello, says he. Hello, says I. I'm Jan across the way, and a man should know his neighbours, as my mother used to say. So don't get him worried about the job you got to do, because folk round here are as good as gold, apart from 1 or 2. Now, we like our hymns old-fashioned, nothing sensitive nor slick, like onward Christian soldiers, because we'd like to give 'em stick. Leave Mildred start before the rest, if you would be so kind, or else you'll find she's dragging on a scat or 2 behind. And Percy on his organ is inclined to lose the trail, because his organ is electric and his hands is British Rail. If he's slow to finish, don't go sending for the nurse. Just nod your head towards us and we'll sing another verse. And when it comes to sermons, keep them brief and to the point, or you'll find the congregation got their noses out of joint. Of course, we're keen to share your thoughts about the promised land, but we find them 20 minutes is as much as we can stand. And if you don't mind me saying, this isn't London town, but if you're stepping out in public, perhaps you ought to tone her down. 'Tis all right in your garden, you're protected by the trees, but don't wear your earrings Sundays, or they'll be down there on their knees. How thoughtful he considered. Many thanks for your advice. It's good to find that people are so neighbourly and nice. So thank you, Jan, for coming. Just one thing before you go. Would you like to meet my father? He's the vicar, don't you know?